Black Pearl?
Black Pearl is doing great.
Great. The Black Pearl is Dwayne's recreational vehicle, which logs many miles. Is that a diesel or gasoline engine? Diesel? Yeah. All right. Yeah. Daimler-Benz invented the diesel engine. Okay, so we're gonna get started. My name is Richard, and I am going to steer us. And this is the 16th.
Maybe 17th.
17th, thank you. This is the 17th meeting of LAVA, the Los Angeles Visionaries Association. This is a entity that came out of a lot of interesting work that my lovely wife, Kim, raise your hand, and I have been doing downtown in Los Angeles for several years, and we're happy to be here. We have two talks today. Our first talk is going to be with Maja and Paul, and they're going to talk on esoteric subjects around Los Angeles. And I'll leave it at that, and you guys can refine it. And then we have our friend Brian. Brian, raise your hand. Brian is one of the most amazing people I've ever met. He's one of the greatest authorities on tile in Southern California. He's brought his slide projector. We're going to set the screen up, and he's going to take you by the hand and lead you down the path to the history of. Are you going to talk about just Rufus Keeler or beyond? I guess we have ancillary stuff at the end.
Yeah, but it's mainly Rufus Keeler's life and work and tile.
Rufus Keeler was the man who became the designer for California Tile Company, which is the Ridge Mansion out in Malibu. So this is we're just Paul and Maja are going to go first. We're going to take just a 5-minute break, 10-minute break, let everyone take a breath, and then Brian is just going to talk for probably an hour and a half. We're going to go over. So I'm warning you, and you're going to be happy. You're not going to want him to end.
You wanted the short version? Yeah. Disappointing.
He's really great, and you actually you're deeply rooted to Rufus Keeler because you live in his house.
Yes.
He lives in Rufus Keeler's house in Southgate, so he has a lot to say, and he'll say it. And I'm hoping you will mention maybe if only in passing, the two travesties you've witnessed in the last year: the Steve Jobs debacle in Woodside, and also well, it happened a while ago, but the Roland Coates house, the Tweedy house in Downey. Yeah. Maybe you'll. Do people like ships? Let's get a quick. Who likes ships? I like ships. Rich Polysorbate, you like ships? Okay. Ask Brian if people like ships when he starts his talk.
Okay. You don't want me to start digressing. It's really dangerous. Very dangerous. All
right. We're going to get started. I hope everyone. If you need, there's coffee over there, and between Maja and Paul and Brian, we're going to have a little break so people can grab a piece of pie or something if they want. So. Without Maja and Paul, I have a microphone if you want it. I don't care. It's here if you need it. Sure. I will introduce both of you, and as we hope, you can both get up and introduce and talk just for 5 minutes in general, and then dig in. Great. Let's go.
Ready, go. Hi, everybody. How's it going?
Good.
My name is Maja D'Aoust, and my deal is pretty much esoteric and occult, religious and spiritual information. And so I spent a lot of my time investigating matters pertaining to God and people's expressions and investigations of God. In Los Angeles, we're very fortunate that there's all kinds of investigations and expressions of God, all right next to each other, in a very colorful myriad of forms. So I'm going to be talking mostly about some of the esoteric groups and people that have come together in their explorations of spirituality in Los Angeles.
Okay, well that's me, I guess.
You're going to give just a couple minutes on what you're going to talk about.
Thank you, Maja. My name is Paul Nugent, and I am from one of those esoteric expressions of spirituality in Los Angeles. You can probably tell from my accent that I'm English, which is where the organization began in 1955. And it was founded by a gentleman by the name of Dr. George King. And the organization which he founded that I'm going to speak about is the Aetherius Society. So has anybody in this room heard of the Aetherius Society? A few, great, okay. Well, the rest of you are going to hear a little bit about it, and those of you who do know something are going to hear a little bit more. That's the organization I'll speak about. But just, I guess, very briefly, Dr. George, are we going into the general or?
General, give us 2 minutes. Give us 2 minutes on your ashram.
Okay, I've given 1 minute. The second minute is Dr. George King was a master of yoga, coming out of the Second World War, in which he was a conscientious objector, served in the fire services during the Blitz, saw tremendous horrors, and as a result of that, he turned his direction towards the science of yoga, which was unusual in the 1940s, certainly in England, and he practiced this for 8 hours a day over a 10-year period, caused the kundalini, which we all have at the base of our spine, to rise through the Sushumna channel, which we all have in our spine, allowing him to go into the highest states of meditation known as samadhi. And it was with that ability to go into a state of samadhi or cosmic consciousness that he was, to really sort of stir this up a bit, contacted by an intelligence from another world, from another dimension, we believe from the planet Venus. And the Aetherius Society has arisen out of those contacts that came through Dr. George King in a state of samadhi, deep samadhi trance, being contacted by intelligences, intelligent life forms within our solar system. That's the basis of the Aetherius.
And also this trance, Maja, what's another word for this trance which you talked about on your bus tour yesterday?
Ecstasy. One of my favorite words.
In fact, could you guys try with the microphone?
Oh,
Could you
sure.
try with the microphone?
Sure.
Okay. And so Paul, I'm going to ask you one quick question before you end your general discussion. You know, it's something I like to bring up when we talk about Aetherius. Aetherius is an ashram in the middle of a major metropolitan area. And Dr. King had some very specific ideas about why it was the notion of the pilgrimage in a major metropolitan area.
Yeah, is this on?
It should be on, yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Thank you, I don't have to shout quite so much. It used to be, in days gone by, where the individual seeking enlightenment would go into a cave and hide himself away, or an ashram, removed from humanity. However, given the very critical times that we are in, and I'm not just talking about these immediate economic critical times, but on a far greater scale, the whole planet as a living being is going through a major transformation that is affecting every single one of us at a very deep and profound level. And it's not for us to go and escape and find our own enlightenment at this moment in time, but it is to come out into the world and be primarily of service, to help raise and uplift and send light and healing into our world, because at the end of the day, even at the beginning of the day, we are actually all part of the same universal oneness, and we're here to help each other more than just help ourselves. And by helping each other, by the very law of karma, we are automatically also helping ourselves.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. That was great. Along those lines, one of my favorite quotes from the Bible is a line that says, "When two or more come together in my name, I will be there." Which, like Paul said, there's a certain amount that can be accomplished in isolation by yourself. But in fact, there's something magical that happens when two or more people congregate together with the same intention of trying to organize around God. And that is why people form communities, people form religious groups. That's why people go to church, is because there is something to be said for being a monk and doing it. But I always jive on Thich Nhat Hanh, who's all about meditation in action. Like, you have to be part of the world. You gotta do it with other people. Like, you have to. The world is not a vacuum. No man is an island. I'm kind of optimistic that way, and thinking that we all have to organize together. And when people do organize together with a similar intent, I mean, that's when true magic can happen and true miracles can actually go down. And it takes more than one individual. There's that magic of conjoining. It's the mysterium conjunctio, as Carl Jung calls it, when you come into a community of like-minded people. And in Los Angeles, that happens quite a bit. I mean, you can just go in any neighborhood in Los Angeles and see how many churches are there, for example. There's so many different churches. I mean, am in Glendale, and you can go down the street in Glendale and have like 10 different churches, all within a very close proximity, that have pretty different kind of tenets and teachings. And I always think it's interesting because people will call themselves a Christian, you know, but then, well, what denomination are you? Because they'll believe very different things. If you ask a Protestant what they think of a Catholic, you know, you'll probably get maybe a sort of acerbic answer from that. Or maybe if you ask a Catholic what they think of a Pentecostal, they might even call them a cult member. So I always like to think about that in terms of how people view religious groups as cults. Sometimes, like, some people might think the Aetherius Society is a cult and view them that way, but really some people really view the Catholic Church as a cult because the Pope says he has the Word of God. So there's a lot of Christians that say that's ridiculous and that they're just cult members. If you ask an Orthodox Jew about the Hasidic Jews, they'll say they're a cult. Yeah, no joke. And they're really frowned upon in a lot of Jewish circles, right?
Maja, quickly, what's the difference, in terms of dress, the difference between Orthodox and Hasidic?
Well, there's a big difference.
Just so people that may not know, why don't you just...
A lot of the dress involved in Judaism is very specific, right? I know you guys probably see the ringlets and the hats and the tzitzis that they wear.
Payas are the pearls, right. And the tzitzi are their shawl underneath.
Yes, that hang. The tzitzis have a very specific purpose, and the story behind that is actually pretty good, so I'll just go into it for a moment. There's a very famous rabbi who was enamored with a whore. So he went to go visit the whore and was going to have sex with her, although he was married and had a family. And as he was undressing, he saw his tzitzis and was reminded of God and of the fact that he probably shouldn't be doing that. So in fact, he stopped and remembered, oh yeah, God. So when they see the tzitzis, it's that reminder, oh yeah, God. Because we need reminders, like that's what those, you know, cheesy Kabbalah bracelets that Madonna wears and stuff like that. It's like tying a string around your finger, a little forget-me-not, but it's for God. Because we'll go through our lives, we'll be doing all this stuff, you know, and then you just kind of like forget that there's spirit present in everything. That there's spirit in the rock, in the tree, in the birds and the bees. So these are, the Hasids all have these little reminders to kind of train them, oh yeah, that's right, God's here. Right? I mean, you need all the reminders you can get, in my opinion, because you can get pretty lost up in your little gerbil wheels that go around all day, every day. But yes, the Hasids are a very mystical tradition of Judaism, and as such, they're viewed as a little freaky by the rest of the Jewish community. So when viewing different religious groups or cults, as some people like to call them, I think it's important to put into perspective that there's major religious groups that are viewed as cults as well. So to me, calling something a cult doesn't give it any less significance, right? Because you can look at what is the impact that some religious cults have had on our society. Christianity started as a cult, right? Jesus was not very popular at his inception. He was really a cult leader. And pretty much a witch, right? He would go around performing exorcisms and healing people. So, I mean, if you were in a traditional society, they probably, you know, and he was demonized in the Bible. A lot of people said that he was satanic for performing exorcisms and that he was allied with the devil. He got accused of that all the time. So it's important just to keep that in perspective that even Jesus the Christ himself was accused of devilry or what have you, because he was outside of the norm. Right? But just being outside of the norm does not decrease your ability to interact with or love God. And that's just my opinion. So aside from some of the major religious groups, which by the way, if you go on Fairfax, you'll see the Hasids walking every Shabbat. Like they're all over the streets because you can't, you know, drive on Shabbat. So you'll see them just filling the streets. There's all kinds of Hasids in Los Angeles. I was fortunate enough to live with my friend who was an Hasidic Jew, so I got to learn a lot about Hasidism. But another great thing if you walk around Los Angeles is that you will come upon a fairly large amount of esoteric groups, which are splintered off from all kinds of major, larger esoteric groups, particularly from Europe, like England, like the Aetherius Society kind of came here to Los Angeles. There's many, many of them. One of the more prominent that a lot of people have at least heard of and are familiar with are the Theosophical Society. Have you guys ever been to any of the Theosophical Society locations? There's quite a few of them, and there's different factions of Theosophists. Because like with any major religion like Christianity, there'll be individuals within the group that will disagree with some of the tenets, and they'll split off and formulate their own groups. So we have the ULT, you have the Esoteric Theosophical Society, and then you have the Theosophical Society. And there's buildings of all three of those scattered throughout Los Angeles. And in addition to that, there was an individual in Theosophy called Rudolf Steiner. Is anyone familiar with Rudolf Steiner? He was a splinter and formed his own group called the Anthroposophical Society. And anthroposophy was his own kind of take on some of the teachings of Theosophy, but with differences. And have any of you guys ever sent your children to a Waldorf school? Have you guys ever heard of a Waldorf school? They're a little controversial because they don't teach the children to read until after they're 7 years old. So they've met with a lot of controversy for that reason. But Rudolf Steiner said that it was important not to teach children to read or watch television until they're a certain age, so that their imagination can develop on their own without influence, so they can interact with the world instead of being fed what reality is. And you can imagine how that can be difficult to assimilate into a society which is driven by a constant stream of media into our brains from the time we're literally, some people have their babies watching television when they're like 2 months old, you know, there's all those baby Einstein things, and there's constantly fed a stream of things into their eyes and minds. So the Waldorf schools have a very specific curriculum. And it's funny because a lot of people aren't even aware of the esoteric background of Waldorf schools. Yes, Richard.
You know, Maja, I'm wondering if maybe this might be a good moment to offer up to the group the definition of esoteric.
Oh, sure.
And perhaps the best way to do that is simply,
what do you have there?
Is simply to read from William Q. Judge's notes on the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13. William Q. Judge was an important member of the Theosophical Association of America, the United Lodge of Theosophy. One of their members spoke here just 2 months ago, Victoria. The United Lodge of Theosophy is just down at 33rd Grand. This is a canonical text for the Theosophists at the United Lodge. And it's just 2 short paragraphs. It's the opening of the notes on chapter 13 of the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is a great text outside the canon of the strict canon of the Hindu literature.
Story.
It's a story about Krishna, and I think this is the most concise. As someone whose wife forces him to drive around Los Angeles and talk about people like Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard, a really immediate, concise definition of esoteric thought is very valuable. So, you think I could maybe just read this?
Please.
And then, as both of you talk about esoteric thought, we can just all come back to this. Great. Okay, so this is just from Judge's notes on the Bhagavad Gita. The ULT publishes these great little books of the Bhagavad Gita, and the notes, they're great. I carry them around and give them out. It has been said of this chapter that it contains the whole of occultism, by which is meant an all-inclusive occultism which begins with the highest point of perception and realization, the self within, and which regards action and reaction on every plane of manifestation as the process by which individual and universal power and wisdom are attained. That which stands in the way of knowledge is ignorance, and from the point of view of true occultism, the root of all ignorance lies in misconceptions as to one's own essential nature.
Is that the microphone or something? Oh, no. That's perfect, Richard. And in order to add to that, I think it's important to define the word occult as well, since they use the word occult to define esoteric. The word occult, a lot of people, again, affiliate with Satan, which is hilarious because it in fact comes from the planet Venus, or love. It comes from an astrological term called occultation. And the word occultation comes from when Venus passes between the Earth and the Sun. They call it the occultation of Venus. And if you follow the pathway that Venus takes in her occultation, it actually makes the pentagram. And that in fact is the origin of the symbol of the pentagram. And our letter A, interestingly enough, derives from the pentagram as well. And the origin of that simply means hidden behind. An occultation is when something passes in front of something and it becomes hidden, right? Like an eclipse. So occult simply means something hidden from view. And that, like I said, the origin of that is the planet Venus, which is, of course, love. And Venus was known, interestingly enough, as the morning star because of how she would rise, which sometimes I wonder if that's where the connection between Satan and occultation came from, because of course Lucifer is sometimes known as the morning star as well, in a couple of references. And I always think it's funny because you guys know there's those soy patties that are called Morningstar brand. I just think that's funny to me.
Maja, you got 3 minutes.
Okay.
You're gonna bring us up home.
Okay, so aside from the Theosophists, there's also some active Golden Dawn offshoots as well. The Golden Dawn, of course, was infamous because some of its characters included S.L. McGregor Mathers, Aleister Crowley, you know, all these notorious magicians. But some of the groups here in LA you can look at is the BOTA. Have any of you been to the BOTA? It's a tarot church. It's a church of the tarot. It's a beautiful building. And Paul Foster Case was the originator of it, who was in the Golden Dawn. He was kicked out by S.L. McGregor Mathers' wife for being a little bit of a womanizer. However, the woman that he did womanize, he did marry later. So I don't know, no judgment there. I mean, love, what are you going to do? It's love. Along with that, Aleister Crowley's group, the O.T.O, can be found here as well, which they are continuing to practice, and they hold their rituals according to his tenets. So
they're in Montrose.
They're in Montrose. They're all active here within Los Angeles. Many of these offshoots from those original groups. There are also Rosicrucian groups. You guys familiar with the Rosicrucians? There's several of those. Some of them include Heindel's group, which is over in Oceanside. There's also Amorc. And then there's, I think, one other Rosicrucian group, which is a splinter from the SRIA, which came over from England, which some of the more notorious Freemasons in history were members of the SRIA, so it's sort of a notorious order, but they have a faction in Los Angeles as well. So all of those groups that had kind of been involved with each other splintered off through various individuals to find their homes within Los Angeles in these different forms. It's kind of, I always call it sort of biological, right? It's almost like they had these children, and then the children mated with each other, and they had other children, and then those children formed their own groups. So, and you can see nearly all of them in Los Angeles. It's fairly remarkable. It never ceases to amaze me. That's about it. So,
Good.
Thanks, Richard.
Good. You have a lecture at the Bassam Lodge on Beechwood Canyon.
That's right.
Just give us.
I do. I have a lecture at one of the Theosophical Lodges, which is at 2560 North Beechwood Drive. It's on the street where you can take it all the way up to the Hollywood sign. Appropriately enough. It's a building where Aldous Huxley would meet with his brainiac friends like Christopher Isherwood and W.H. Auden and some other folks like that. And obviously I've been giving a lecture series on death because nobody likes to talk about death, and I think more people should be talking about death because it's part of life. And this one is about turning into light, spontaneous combustion, and other kind of mysterious ways that we can exit the planet that are interesting to me. And that's going to be on the second Sunday of August at 6.
And you're the second Sunday of every...
Every second Sunday at 6. Yeah.
Did you say it's 6?
6, yes.
Okay, thank you. And Paul, I'm going to just hand it over. Thank you.
Thank you, Maja. Just carrying on from the
So it's on.
From the bright morning star. I think you don't have any Bibles on you by any chance.
I don't. I only carried the Bhagavad Gita.
Okay, that's a great Bible.
Who has a Bible?
But we don't need it. But
We have a Bible?
No. I just wanted to interject something. You had mentioned that nobody likes to discuss death. You have a really large contingent of cemetery people here. Great a lot of us here. So just so you know, death endears us. That's what brought us together. So that's it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
okay, that's fine. It's something we all have to go through. Absolutely, a very important aspect of life. As is reincarnation, which, speaking of the Bible, apparently was in the Bible. It was John the Baptist Christ said, "Who do they say I am?" And they figured he might have been Elijah, and likewise John the Baptist. But I think it's Revelations chapter 22, I'm not sure on that, it doesn't really matter, but I know it's in Revelation somewhere, speaking of the bright morning star, and speaking of Jesus. Jesus said, "I am from the bright morning star," which of course is Jesus. And he also said, and I do know chapter and verse on this, John chapter 14 verse 2, "In my Father's house there are many mansions." And equally there are references in other Hindu texts to what they called Vimanas, flying celestial chariots. And a gentleman, I can't remember his name, a professor of Hindu philosophy, or a professor of Sanskrit at Madras University in India, has researched the Hindu texts for over 50 years, and he said, "All of my research convinces me that UFOs have been visiting this world for over 4,000 years. Much more recently, of course, now that we're able to go into space, many astronauts, Dr. Edgar Mitchell, the sixth man to walk on the moon, has said we know UFOs exist, all we need to do is know where they're from and why they're here. Gordon Cooper similarly has come out, spoken about the experiencing UFOs, not just in space but also here on Earth in the 1950s. And likewise Scott Carpenter, another astronaut, NASA astronaut, who said that when we were in space there was constant surveillance by UFOs.
Wow.
So the question is, why are they here? And I guess as well, why are our governments covering this up? And just to touch on that as well, there was a very important, this probably kind of answers the question. During the Second World War, when many flying saucers were seen by pilots on both sides, they were referred to as Foo Fighters, there was a major sighting by the RAF, and Winston Churchill, who was with Eisenhower at the time, said this has to be immediately classified, and it was. It only came out under the Secrets Act, British Secrets Act, a few years ago. But he said this has to be covered up because it will otherwise cause mass panic among the people, and it will cause a crisis within the church. And I think that those are the major reasons that our politicians do sit on hard evidence of UFOs, because number one, they don't understand why they're here, and it's something that they can't control. So the best thing is to keep it all tucked away. However, the point is that UFOs, which have been visiting us for, as mentioned, thousands of years, it was Carl Jung 80 years ago who said that we're on the verge of a new spiritual epoch, and I'd say that's absolutely the case. It's certainly the case of the Aetherius Society. We've reached, we're now able to venture out into space. Of course, just a few hundred years ago we thought our planet was flat. We were wrong about that. And we're wrong in thinking that there isn't life, intelligent life, on other levels of dimension, both around this planet and around other planets within our solar system. And what the Aetherius Society teaches about that is that, speaking of death, ultimately there is no such thing as death. A major aspect of our philosophy, and Wahum means alone in this, it's part of certainly Hindu teaching, is that we go through the process of reincarnation, all governed by the law of karma. As you sow, so shall you reap. That's taught by Christ. And the reason for that is because, which any yogi will tell you, is that it's all absolute oneness. We're all part of a universal oneness, and in the ultimate sense there is no such thing as death. Everything is living, including the planet Earth. The Earth is a highly evolved sentient being. The Sun is an even more advanced sentient being. Even the galaxy is a sentient being, and we're part of it. And there's mentioned there in the Bhagavad Gita, which we would completely subscribe to. The only, in inverted commas, sin is ignorance. We're at a stage of our evolution when we don't really know who and what we are, but we are an aspect of this divinity, which all the yogis have fully understood. Christ, who attained this state of cosmic consciousness, as the Buddha had this state of cosmic consciousness,
what they were filled with, one thing they were filled with, was of course compassion, because they could see that that divine essence is in every single one of us, and it's all that there actually is, and it's all that actually matters. And so our purpose through the process of reincarnation, or rather why we reincarnate, the major reason that we're here is to move away from the ignorance, or turn towards, is to raise the kundalini, this fluid in the base of the spine, so that we too will experience the mystic states of cosmic consciousness. And once we have attained those states, and we're not great at doing it, it's difficult, we get distracted, we have our own past karma that leads us away into doing other things and dealing with other issues. But once we can move beyond that and realize what our true purpose is, which is to seek enlightenment, it is to become enlightened, gain this state of cosmic consciousness that the Masters had. And once we've attained that state, we will then go through another state of initiation, which Christ himself demonstrated, which was ascension, going beyond death. You killed my body, I can recreate my body, and come back. And once we can attain that state, and have attained, and we will. I mean, it's our absolute. There is nothing in creation that can deny us that. It may take us millions of years, thousands of years, even millions of years to do it. We will keep coming back until we get it. That is who and what we really are, and the eventual path that we all have to go down in this journey back to God. Then once we have attained that state of cosmic consciousness and experienced ascension, as I say, as Christ demonstrated, then we will go, it doesn't just go back, as has traditionally been taught, to this state of ecstatic bliss, of nirvana, as it's referred to in Eastern texts. It goes beyond. In fact, I would say that cosmic consciousness really is just the beginning. And there is this incredible, phenomenal, divine journey that we are all on. We are experiencing greater and greater and greater levels, believe it or not, of ecstasy. Although it's because the more one goes down this path, the more incredible it becomes. And I'm probably running out of time a little bit, but I just want to come back, I guess, to how I became involved with the Aetherius Society. And I'm sorry, I haven't really touched too much on, I mean, there's so much to the Aetherius Society. If you're interested, like Maja, I also give talks, give lectures, and you're welcome to take one of these, which is a series of lectures, free lectures I'll be giving this in next month. Monday evenings are repeated on Wednesday mornings, which are called Why the Aetherius Society, which will go into all of these things and what the message was of these masters, and why these times are so critical, and how these masters are helping humanity at this time, as they always have been, in profound ways, not in sensational ways, in the way we think of Star Wars and Independence Day, not at all, but in profoundly beautiful spiritual ways. They are helping humanity behind the scenes. Anyway, just coming back to my own personal involvement. Many years ago, about 25, 30 years ago, I was, as a young adult, was curious to understand what this life is really all about, and I didn't know where to turn. The only thing I knew from my upbringing was the Bible, so I read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and I found in reading those Gospels that here was someone who really understood what this life is really all about and how we should be living it. And I found that essentially, even in the Christian world and globally, but in the Christian world we pay lip service to that. We don't really live what Jesus was talking about. And anyway, it got me involved in going to the Anglican Church in London, originally Westminster Abbey, but then I went to another church in Trafalgar Square, if you know London, called St. Martin's in the Fields. And meanwhile, a colleague at work was a member of this somewhat strange organization, the Esoteric Society. And we would talk at great length about mystical and occult things and spiritual things. And I also visited a place in Scotland you may have heard of called Findhorn, wonderful New Age spiritual community. And all of these things built up. But anyway, I was curious about this organization, the Aetherius Society. But what really got me was that in 1958, which was the year of my birth, coming back to Dr. George King, who would go into this samadhic trance, on 12 consecutive Sundays in 1958, very specifically went into a deep samadhic trance, and not for the first time, and I realize in saying this that one has to be very cautious, and I was cautious. I was skeptical. One should be somewhat skeptical, but it's their belief that Jesus, this same Jesus of 2,000 years ago, who came off the cross, who we believe is from Venus, the bright morning star, as we also believe the Lord Buddha was a Venusian master. Jesus spoke through Dr. King when he was in this deep yogic samadhic trance and gave what is essentially a cosmic extension to his Sermon on the Mount, because we are now have entered this era where we are going into space, where astronauts are telling us that there is life out there, but that can be on our physical plane, but that can disappear and go on to other realms of existence. And these, what are called the 12 blessings, we have our church in Hollywood. Each Sunday we play one of these cosmic transmissions, one of these blessings. As I say, it's our belief that this is the voice, this is Jesus. You will hear, as far as we're concerned, the voice of Jesus. Not that that really necessarily matters. And as I listen to these blessings, which the first of which is, blessed are they who work for peace. Blessed are I'll run through them very quickly. Blessed are the wise ones. Blessed are they who love. Blessed are the planetary ones. Blessed are the thanksgivers. Blessed are they who heal. And then the 7th blessing is, blessed is the Mother Earth, as a living being. 8th blessing, blessed is the mighty Sun. 9th blessing, blessed are the supreme lords of karma. 10th blessing, blessed is the great being known as the galaxy. And the 11th blessing, blessed are the supreme lords of creation. And the 12th blessing is blessed is the absolute. And the reason I'm saying that, just to tie up, for those of you who've been paying wonderful attention, thank you, is that this incredible thing called life, that we are all a part of, that cannot ever be taken away from any single one of us, just gets more and more and more incredibly phenomenal, the more enlightened we become and the more we go down this path. And the reason I say that is because in the 11th blessing that I just mentioned, blessed are the supreme lords of creation, it says, these are the gods of the gods. These dwell in the highest places in all the vast universal system. When I say these are the gods of the gods, these are the gods of the galaxies. These are the gods of the supreme lords of karma. These are the gods of the suns. These are the gods of the planets. We know there are billions of planets, there are billions of galaxies. All of these have been brought into manifestation by the supreme lords of creation. But then it goes on in the 12th blessing to the absolute. Not even the supreme lords of all creation, who, as I say, are the gods of the gods, not even the supreme lords of all creation can do justice to the picturization of the magnificence of God. And it just gets, the more we evolve, the more enlightened we become, the more incredible and beautiful and phenomenal, beyond words, beyond mind, it all becomes. And that is part of, it is a very major part of the essential message of the Aetherius Society. Safe to say that right now we need to help, we need to demonstrate that belief in loving service to all life. I guess that's it. Thank you.
We've got a couple that, thank you. That was fantastic. I had to go downstairs and talk with some of the owners and managers about totally unrelated stuff just to make nice. I didn't know if you told them about your prayer meetings on Tuesday, if you could just give them some milestones that they might be able to attend so they can touch base with your group, the Aetherius?
Milestones.
Just, you know, up your next meeting or two.
Sure. Well, as I say, I devised this course. One thing about this course that I devised, why the Aetherius Society, just as a little aside. Ironically enough, it's how I met my wife. So if you're sort of curious, you want to find a partner in life, who knows, you come to Why the Aetherius Society, you might meet your life partner, I don't know. But anyway, attracted my wife. That's a major aside. Nothing to do with the content of the course, I assure you. This message, as far as I'm concerned, is of profound importance because as I said right at the beginning, the Earth as a living being is changing. Her vibrations are quickening. The changes that we're seeing are actually part man-made, but fundamentally the planet as a living being is, like all of us, is evolving, and her vibrations are quickening, and it's having an effect on every single one of us, and we need to get our act together as individuals and collectively, and if we don't, well, who knows what may happen. Who knows what may happen if we don't. So what I would say is that if you want to come along, please do. Monday nights, it's first Monday in August. No, tomorrow, that's tomorrow, so it's the 8th. It's the second one. It will be repeated on Wednesday mornings, and it'll run for 4 weeks. But other than that, we have a service of the 12 blessings. Those 12 blessings, at the end of 9 of them, Jesus gave a prayer. We use those prayers to send energy out to the world. Thursday nights, we use those prayers again, but we also do mantra at the same time, and we invoke spiritual energy through prayer and mantra, and we store it in a battery, a crystal battery. Well, then we release that energy at times throughout the year, or when there's crises like the humanitarian crisis at the moment in East Africa. Tremendous infusion of prayer energy, released in a very concentrated way. We have seen literally miracles as a result of prayer energy. And on that, I'd love to quote Mahatma Gandhi, who said more things, Mahatma Gandhi said, prayer, properly understood and applied, is the most potent instrument of action. If any of you are sick or got any healing troubles, we give spiritual healing. We're a non-profit organization, we don't charge for any of this stuff. We give spiritual healing, hands-on healing on Tuesday nights at our center in Hollywood. We have divine service, as I mentioned, on Sundays at 11 o'clock, where we always play one of those transmissions, as I say, we believe, which was given by Jesus in 1958.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we're going to take just a quick break. We're going to set up the screen. If you want to grab a cup of coffee or a piece of pie, then Brian is going to come on in about 7 minutes, and he's going to just do a great slideshow, and it's going to be fantastic. So thank you, Maja. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
You guys, thank you. And Maja and Paul, you're going to be here for maybe 10 more minutes. If people have questions while we're getting set up, people can come up and talk to you. Good. All right, let's go. I'm going to set the screen up.